I think, therefore I am might as well be one of the most famous quotes in history. It was coined by Descartes, who is a philosopher, a French philosopher, who argued for many things like rationalism and body-mind dualism. That is, the body and the mind being separate entities. The process which Descartes used to reach this conclusion is quite simple. He starts from doubting himself, doubting his experiences, doubting his senses, doubting whether he can trust the external world. He starts doubting his ideas, then his dreams, then doubts everything. And he says, okay, well, if I doubt everything, I must be thinking, and I must exist in order to think and to doubt anything. Dubito ergo cogito, cogito ergo sum. I doubt, therefore I think, therefore I am. If I doubt everything in this world, I must exist in order to doubt. Which may sound as a pretty logical conclusion. He afterwards uses this foundation block to argue for God's existence and for the body-mind dualism, the mind being something separate and that he is sure exists, and then the body being, because of God, something that exists in the actual world. And all of this might sound fine and dandy, except that there were multiple philosophers throughout history who argued against this view or posed some challenges. The first of them being, well, David Hume. Sir David Hume was a famous and firm believer in empirism, that is, knowledge coming from the external world through the sensory organs. And in his text, Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding, he rejects some of Descartes' views. In chapter 12, he says that there isn't this central rational existence, but even if there were, to go beyond that, to just extrapolate from that, you would have to use the sensory organs, basically making it useless. We can go even further and look at Nietzsche's concerns. Nietzsche might as well be the most famous philosopher, and in Beyond Good and Evil, he doesn't only have something to say about I think, therefore I am, but about I am in general. Nietzsche argues that in order to think or in order to exist, you must compare your present state of thinking, of willing, of existing, with a previous state of doing that thing. So, in order to say, I think, what you are doing now must be compared with something that you did in the past. If you need to compare them, well, the same I, the same person that did the things needs to apply. Therefore, existing is something that is necessary. It's a prerequisite for thinking, which makes Descartes' argument circular. I need to exist in order to think, but I am. So I am, therefore I think, therefore I am, therefore I think, therefore I am. Nietzsche also argues against I. Who is this I? Why do we assume that an I needs to do the thinking? This is more of a grammatical construction. It thinks, I don't think. But what is that it? Why do you think that it needs to exist? In chapter 17 of Beyond Good and Evil, these questions are posed, which bring a different light to Descartes' view. And the last counter-argument, well, might be the most complicated one, coming from the most complicated, or one of the most complicated of philosophers, Wittgenstein. One of his two major books is Philosophical Investigations, and there he says that a private language, that is, a language that is separate from the external world, cannot exist. Now, the argument is a little complicated, so I'll try my best to explain it easily. So, let's say you have a journal in which you write the letter S whenever you feel the sensation S, whatever that might be. That means you have a rule that you write S whenever you feel S. Now, there's a catch, and that is that you haven't externally defined S. You only defined it internally, and that means the definition can change. In a future point, you might forget what S was, and when you feel another sensation, let's say T, you might mistake it for S, and write your little letter in your journal. This is a private language, one that's meaningless because you don't have exact definitions. They change over time. It's like buying a newspaper and then buying the same newspaper 2 or 3 times to make sure that the same things were written as in the first newspaper. And this can be applied to Descartes. If his existence is only that thing which doubts, that thing which thinks, that abstract mind, well, how can he know for sure that he's following the rules, the same rules as before? How can he be sure that when he doubts, he means the same thing as he meant before? How can it be sure that when it thinks about thinking, it's thinking about the same thing as thinking was beforehand? If he has no external definitions, if he only exists as this mind, well, how can he follow the same rules as he followed before? So these were the objections to I think, therefore I am, formulated by famous philosophers. I hope this was understandable. I hope I got my message through to you. I hope you enjoyed it and found it at least a little insightful. Thank you for watching. Subscribe.